let's talk about the aftermath of the weekend. And the four teams that lost, it's like different grades. It's like different DEFCONs. Where house money for the Jaguars and Giants, technically, right?
Yep.
And then the Cowboys were viable, which is what Jerry said he wanted to have as a successful season, but not again in the championship game. And then the Bills were the odds-on favorite in so many different places to win the Super Bowl, and they only win once. So let's take the Bills first. What is the reason why you think they didn't go as far as the rest of the NFL media world thought that they would, me included?
I think there are a couple things. I think the first thing is they were playing with such a large margin for error, early in the year. And you remember how it started, the way they looked against the Rams, the way they looked against the Titans on that Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just feel like there were a lot of games, like the Patriot game at the end of the year, the Dolphin game in the wild card round are two recent examples of it, where their margin for error was so big that they could screw around and win games. And you sort of wonder if that caught up to them, where this team that had been blowing teams out all year, or they've been not playing very well and getting away with it, if that finally caught up with them. I also think there's something to be said for the fact that this is probably a pretty worn out group, and what they went through, all the way back to the tragedy in their area, the Top supermarket last spring, to the two snowstorms that debilitated their area, to the DeMar Hamlin thing, added on to the football stuff, like the injuries, to guys like Von Miller and Micah Hyde. That's the other part of it. I just, it's almost seemed like a team that was a little worn down and lacked spark, on Sunday. So those are the two things that stick out. And look, I think they have some work to do. I think they've got some hard questions to ask themselves, about the way they coached that game, and then where they are at certain spots on their roster. The good news for them is the hard part's taken care of. They've got premier players at premier positions, and so they should be good for the foreseeable future. The question is, what's it going to take to get them over the top?
What does Dallas do? I was saying yesterday, Albert, if Jerry really wants to blow it up, the opportunity to blow it up, which he doesn't like to do. Everyone is still informed by Jerry Jones in their mind's eye about what he did with Jimmy Johnson back in the 90s.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to blow stuff up.
That.
He doesn't do it. He doesn't. And I don't know if it was informed by the fact that he did do it with Jimmy and regrets it, and he saw what he did, and now that keeps him without blowing things up. But the quarterback is there in Brady if he really wants to blow that up. And the coach is there in Sean Payton if he wants to blow that up. And he could just totally redo everything, blow it up, and deal with the aftermath, in 2025, 26, 27, with Sean Payton getting another new quarterback at some point. What do you think happens here with Dallas, Albert?
My experience being around that team, and I was on that beat 15 years ago, I think you're right, in what you're saying about Jerry generally exhibiting more patience than people realize, because again, they have it in their head that he's this gunslinger from Arkansas. You know what I mean? It really, he gave Dave Campo extra years all those years ago. He gave Wade Phillips extra years. He gave Jason Garrett extra years. And I actually think, on balance, Mike McCarthy did a pretty decent job this year. You look, they were without their quarterback for 5 games. They went 4-1, I believe, through that stretch.
Oh yeah, their left tackles that was supposed to totally tear them apart.
Left tackle had a rookie ready to go, and who played great. Their first-round pick. So I think there are a lot of things that they have going for them. To me, the question going forward is twofold. Number one, if you lose Dan Quinn, how do you manage that? Because I think Quinn has been such a huge part of what they've done, and it was to Mike McCarthy's credit that he made the coordinator change after his first year in Dallas and went and got Dan Quinn. So if you lose Dan Quinn, what's the plan? How are you going to replace him? Because he's been a huge part of their success over the last 2 years on that side of the ball, and developing guys like Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs. And then the second piece, I think, is just sort of who you are offensively. I think because Dak Prescott's on the contract he's on, you try to become a little bit more quarterback-centric. But when Dak's been at his best, they've really been more of a team that's built around the running game and that, I think manages games a certain way. And so the question is, do you get back to being that? My guess would be that Zeke Elliott's probably gone after this year based on the number for next year. And, then Tony Pollard's a free agent, so you've got that question there. Do they draft a running back? I just think offensively there's like a little bit of a crisis of identity there where when things get really tough, where do we turn? And, I think that that's something that they're going to have to figure out over the course of the offseason. So it's not that I think a lot of the personnel, absent, again, the running back position, they got to figure that out. I think that like a lot of the personnel is in place. I think they just sort of have to figure out who they are and how to best utilize Dak Prescott because, there were points the year, the Jaguar game where he threw the pick six. Obviously, he wasn't great against the Niners, where it just looked like when they leaned on him in a certain way, he didn't really respond the way you'd want him to.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.